Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new news roundup video. And today, we're actually only talking about a couple of subjects. I'm wearing the headphones because I want to go over some new Flash promos and TV spots, which are pretty interesting. And I have a couple of things to say about that. But the main segment of this video will be about Superman Legacy. As I'm sure some of you have heard by now, or maybe a lot of you, we have some information coming from major trades, The Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, you name it, about who could be cast as not only Superman, but Lois Lane, Lex Luthor. Both reports as well from Deadline and The Hollywood Reporter are talking about different things, so I kind of want to cross-reference them and get down to maybe what is really going on, but also just give my thoughts about who could I actually envision in the role of Superman, but also Lex Luthor, because there's a bit of conflicting information, as I just briefly teased about, like Nicholas Hoult, like is he in the running for Superman, or is it actually Lex Luthor? So I would love your guys' input when we get to talk about that. And do me a favor, if you'd be so kind, maybe, just maybe, leave a like on the video. It'd really help me out, helps promote the video in the algorithm and all of that good stuff, and I can't really do it without your engagement. So on top of a comment, hit the like button if you do go on to enjoy this video. But let's get into some of these TV spots.
I love you, Monkey.
I love you more.
I loved you first.
My mom will always be alive. Somewhere in time.
A huge part of Flashpoint, obviously, Nora.
Save her. But I completely broke the universe. I have to undo what I did.
I do like that shot of the Speed Force.
Want some help?
The Batwing, of course.
I'm Batman.
So obviously, probably.
When your crush asks to see your place.
Can we talk?
Iris. Blue Lightning.
Coming in.
I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot tidier in here than I expected.
Is that Clown?
Can I offer you a drink?
Sure.
The Flash, rated PG-13.
My mom. She's the best and kindest person in the world.
This is where the feels is gonna come in.
Moms like to hear this kind of things.
Okay, that was short, but
Different people, different worlds.
Barry meeting his
drawn
mum
to each
again.
other like magnets.
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
The suit is inside the ring. Ready?
Okay, I've seen this one. Yep,
You're supposed to put it on before it hits the floor.
right.
Back in time. I completely broke the universe.
Want some help?
Wait, he's Batman?
Let's get nuts.
And Barry, what are you doing? Our kids are gonna want to see this.
The Flash, rated PG-13.
So,
PG-13 16.
one thing I do want to say about the end of that latest promo that we just watched, like straight off the bat, is that yes, it is a TV spot that is, I'm pretty sure, being recorded from a phone. So that's something to bear in mind before we maybe criticize it. But there's one thing that I think stands out, even if we saw this in, not recorded on a phone. And I do think it's fair to say, because I've noticed this ever since the first trailer. I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world, but there's something a little bit off about it. And we're going to briefly talk about all the promos, or what's worth talking about. And that's the first thing. When we have our Barry showing the younger Barry, the other Barry, as we call him, the Flash ring, and then, he launches the Flash ring. It's a bit of a joke because he lets it hit the floor and he didn't get in it. But it's when they transition to the slow-mo, Flash time. You see, like, Ezra Miller's face before that, right? That's Ezra's face. Like, you can tell it's not a CGI head. But then, when they slow down into Flash time, you do have that somewhat plastic-looking-esque CGI around the chin/neck area. And I don't think this is, again, like, because they recorded it on their phone and, you know, the TV spot, and this is how we're viewing it. Granted, it would look sharper and better. I'm not going to deny that. But the reason why I think that this is just beyond that, and why it's a little bit of a weird plasticky CGI-esque kind of thing, is because I've seen it, as I said, in the other trailers. Occasionally, because Ezra's playing two Barrys, on the other body double when the head is masked onto it, which is kind of weird here because, you know, it's a close-up of one Barry, so why would there be that effect? Normally, it's only present when both of them are on the screen at the same time. And what I mean by present, when you see both of them in the same frame, it's that neck/jawline area which looks a little bit off. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure some of you do. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh my god, look at the Flash's CGI. But when it comes to this, I am a bit like, okay, I can notice something there. And I feel like this shot just really stands out. Again, you see the Barry before, and then it slows down. He's got his blue lightning there. And then there's something off about the lower part of the face. I don't know what it is. I don't think I'm going crazy there. And then it goes back into normal Barry mode when the suit's on the floor. And there's none of that kind of Play-Doh-y-esque face or skeletal structure there. It's not a huge deal. It's just, I do think, you know, when I see the film, I'm going to notice quite a bit of this throughout. I do think it's really cool technology that they've used, you know, the fact that you can have two Ezra faces on, you know, well, two Barrys, right? And I'm sure it is very impressive and very hard to pull off, but there are going to be cracks, and moments like this is what I notice most. And let me know if you notice that as well. But other than that, the first promo is a bit of an extended TV spot, kind of like another international trailer, if you will. Very similar footage. The most, you know, remarkable one that stood out to me is where we have Barry in, I believe, the Speed Force. The Speed Force is looking kind of weird. You've got the other Barry's lightning there in the background being blue. You've got our new, well, DCEU Barry with the upgraded lightning. But yeah, there's something off about the Speed Force compared to what we've seen in other shots where it's a bit more, you know, orangey and bloomy and red and stuff. Maybe this is, for all I know, when Dark Flash gets involved. But notice how he doesn't have, like, his suit going all the way down to his hand there. He's wearing his flash ring on his index finger, but I don't know why his glove is off, or like, is it even a glove, or is it more of a onesie? I can't remember if it actually is a detachable glove. I don't know. I don't want to analyze it that much, but he appears to be wearing his watch backwards. I don't know. It's just like one of the only extra shots that we get out of all the other somewhat recycled footage. We then go to the next promo, and that was with Iris West going over to Barry's apartment. And at this point in the film, notice how the DCEU Barry still has his blue lightning. So that is interesting because I didn't know, and a lot of you have been asking as well, is how does he get his upgraded lightning color? Will the film start off with that already because Ben Affleck gave him his new Flash suit in the Flash ring? So what I'm wondering, if he has blue lightning here, is this before the Justice League team up scene, maybe before he gets his suit? But then again, I believe he got gifted that suit in the comic book, the somewhat prequel comic book. I'm not sure, but either way, it's a bit of a comedic scene. Barry tidies up very fast to try and impress Iris. A bit of a cliche kind of load of garbage coming out the cupboard, exploding. I believe there's a little clown there. I think it's a Pennywise clown, which is a bit of an Easter egg for Andy Muschietti, who obviously directed the It films. But I would love to know your theories behind the lightning color, because at this point, Barry still has the same old Snyderverse lightning, the blue one. And then up next in the third promo. So again, lots of heavy emphasis recently on these TV spots with Nora. This one gives away a scene in where Barry's already traveled back in time into the new universe, so he gets this opportunity to bump into her in a grocery store and say how his mum's amazing. And she's like, well, tell her that. Mums like to hear that kind of thing. And if you pair this with other scenes in other trailers, Barry slows down time again because it seems like she like holds his face and he's kind of soaking up the affection that he hasn't had from his mother in God knows how many years. So, you know, this Flash movie, in of itself, the storyline of Flashpoint is a very emotional one. I shouldn't need to explain that. The whole reason Barry goes back in time is to prevent his mother's murder. So it's pretty cool how they've already teased the scene with him bumping into her in the grocery store, and I think that's going to definitely make some of us have some teary eyes there. I mean, to be honest, if I was Nora, with how this guy's looking at me, I'd be a bit like, oh, This is a bit strange. So I hope the scene sells it well, because, you know, I'm guessing Nora is just like a really friendly person. The thing is, obviously, she doesn't realize this is her son, but do you know what I mean? Barry's going to be so endearing towards her because this is his mum, but she has no idea about that. So I wonder if it will be a little bit weird, but I think Ezra will play up the awkwardness as we got little teasers with in this promo. Either way, looking forward to that Barry and Nora interaction there, and what it could be like in other scenes, especially when he has to let her die to actually try and fix the universe again. Can't wait to see what you guys have to say, but now we have to talk about frickin' Superman, because this is an exciting time. You know, other than covering a movie itself, like what I just did with, you know, TV spots, promos, I love breaking down even, you know, before pre-production, when we get into the casting stuff. It's the same thing for like the Batman, where we heard like Jonah Hill could be playing the Penguin, or, you know, Riddler. I love getting into stuff like this, and Superman is a big thing. I shouldn't need to state that. Superman, especially considering when James Gunn came in, you know, got rid of Henry Cavill, this, that, and the other. You know, some people may have moved past that, some people may not, but nevertheless, people are going to be interested for whatever reason, and that's because we're getting a new Superman. Not only Superman, but Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, frickin' Lex Luthor, and the list goes on. And now we have a report from The Hollywood Reporter, and I'm going to read a few lines out. I may as well, you know, give it to you in terms of how they've written it. I then want to talk about the actual, you know, options here, but also chuck in there with what Deadline said, because there are conflicting reports. And they're two major trades, you know, they are competitors, so I suppose, you know, they might have different things to say about it. There's also a couple of tweets as well, where the guy who wrote the Deadline article quote tweeted the guy who wrote the Hollywood Reporter article saying, no, it's actually this. So do you see what I mean? Let's try read between the lines here. But as you can see, the Hollywood Reporter searching for Superman inside the quest to cast DC's new top hero. So the quest for James Gunn's Superman is up, and away. Casting for Superman Legacy, the feature that is meant to kick off Gunn and Peter Safran's much vaunted first chapter of DC Studios, is hitting a crucial phase with a short list of names bubbling up for the roles of Clark, Lois, and even Lex Luthor. And this is true. You know, I will interject a couple of times. That's because we heard that the kind of rough auditions, even, you know, this is way before actual screen tests and stuff, were taking place during the Guardians of the Galaxy press tour. James Gunn even spoke about it, saying like, oh, he could review them on his iPad if he wanted to. So, you know, we're getting slowly but surely. You know, Guardians has been out for a little while now. So this is actively happening right now, which is why it's kind of hot news. David Corenswet, who recently played the ill-fated projectionist opposite Mia Goth in Pearl, is among the top contenders to play Kent, aka Superman, of course, advancing to the screen test stage that will likely take place after Memorial Day or early June, multiple sources tell The Hollywood Reporter. Now, two other contenders may also be in the mix, but their identities remain unknown. This is what I mean about the different articles. Deadline claim to know the other identities, and this is where I always say, even though these are major trades, you still have to read between the lines. I'm not saying major trades aren't more credible than other outlets out there that we may pull from time to time, but then you get, you know, Variety, of which is a major trade, and they said that James Gunn and Peter Safran were going to put the Batman into the DCU, and then James Gunn shot it down. So I'm always saying, take everything with a grain of salt, especially when there hasn't actually been a breaking news, this person has been cast. Like Paul Dano cast as the Riddler. This is more, okay, well, this actor might be, you know, screen testing soon for Superman, but this person, you know, is still not definitive. But they go on to say Jacob Elordi, another popular fan cast, the sought-after star who broke out as the resident villain on HBO series Euphoria, is a name that surfaced for the role of Ken. And this is what's interesting, but sources say he never submitted himself into the ring. British actors Tom Brittney and Andrew Richardson are also names that were in the early mix. Now, as for Lois Lane, and we'll break down the Kent castings in a second, the spunky reporter at Metropolis's Daily Planet news organization contenders have been Emma Mackey, one of the stars of the Netflix series Sex Education, of whom I'm sure many of you know, and she's blowing up, to be fair, and who will appear in Warner Brothers' title Barbie. Rachel Brosnahan, is that how you say it? Brosnan or Brosnahan? Either way, the Emmy-winning star of Amazon's acclaimed The Marvelous Miss Maisel and Bridgerton actress Phoebe Denevor and Samara Weaving, last seen in Scream 6. It is unclear who is advancing onto the testing stage. Brosnahan is said to have delivered an outstanding audition, but at 32, may be in the older range for what Gunn is ultimately hoping to achieve. A look at Metropolis heroics via 20-something characters. So, as many of you know, it's been a rumor out there for a long time that they're looking for actors 25 and above. But then again, James Gunn a while back did say all that means is that they're not just like, you know, excluding the 20s or like keeping it to the 30s. So 32, they're like the Hollywood Reporter is saying it could be too much in the older range for what Gunn is looking for. And, you know, that's interesting because there are a few actors like in the Kent side of things who are testing out for this, who are in the similar age range. But it is, as what I've been saying for a long time, I never thought it'd be like 22 or 25. I just don't think so. My gut is telling me no. I've always said like 28 to 32-ish, like tops, like around there. Now, some of the actors are 27, and it does go up to around 32. I don't think 33, but somewhere around there. They go on to say that sources caution that some of these are not screen testing and have merely been in the mix. One source, without providing additional detail, dismissed some of the names as a chat room list. Warner's had no comment, and one insider said the filmmakers and studio are nowhere near a decision, which the latter of that I completely believe. Like, there's articles coming out right now with all these names, like Emma Mackey, David Corn Sweat, and whatnot, but like it's still so, like, James Gunn is probably like, okay, it's pretty cool audition or whatever, but like, you know, the pressure of actually finding your Clark and your Superman, I feel like it's, you know, long from over. Like, it's not going to take months and months and months and months and months, but don't think there's like a definitive decision happening like by this Thursday. But what about Lex? So they go on here to say one role that seems to have only one person earmarked is the classic villain Luthor. Nicholas Hoult, currently starring in vampire thriller Renfield, has been tipped to play the bald-headed evil genius. So the interesting thing about this, ladies and gentlemen, about Nicholas Hoult and the Hollywood Reporter saying that he's been tipped to play Lex Luthor, is that we have the guy who wrote the Deadline article, as I mentioned earlier, quote tweet Boris Kitt, who wrote the Hollywood Reporter article, saying, well, no, like, Hoult is up for Superman, not Luthor. So this is what I mean. Oh God, I'm losing my voice already. This is what I mean. Hollywood Reporter is saying, no, Holt's playing like in the runs to play Luthor. But Justin Kroll for Deadline, in the Deadline coverage of this, is saying, no, it's Superman. So we'll revisit this in just a second, but let's go on to see what James Gunn said about this with all these articles coming out. He replies, for all of you asking, I would never comment on who is or who isn't auditioning for a role. That's the actor's business only, and isn't something I'd make public unless they did it first after the fact. And he gives an example like, you know, Glenn Howerton or Zachary Levi having auditioned for Star-Lord and being top choices. For now, only one person has been cast in Superman Legacy, and it isn't any of the regular players in the Superman world. So he's cast one person. They're not like a major regular player in the Superman world, so they're not even Jimmy Olsen, let alone Lois Lane or Clark Kent. It's someone else in the background, I'm guessing. So as for the Deadline article, don't worry, I'm not going to read the whole thing out here. They do say similar things. You know, David Corenswet, Jacob Elordi, Andrew Richardson, Nicholas Hoult, in terms of in the mix for Kent. They didn't say Nicholas Hoult for Luthor, as per what we just went over. But as for something that the Hollywood Reporter didn't include, they go on to say, as for Superman's nemesis, Lex Luthor, there are various routes it could land. While Gunn has been checking with some A-list names he's worked with in the past, sources say that one role that has been testing has been for a part simply labeled Apex, and for those who aren't Superman historians, that part could actually be Apex Lex Luthor, who is not only version of the villain that has the strength to fight Superman, but would also hint at a potential multiverse situation, as Apex Lex did have run-ins with other Luthors in various dimensions. So yeah, Apex Lex is kind of like a imbued Lex Luthor, kind of half Martian-esque, you know, proper amped up Luthor. And as they say here, like, can actually swing fist to fist with Superman. He did actually go run the multiverse, killing other versions of himself. He kind of got imbued with powers as well from Perpetua, which is where he gets into the whole multiversal side of things. Now, just a short comment on this. I wouldn't read into this. You know, for a first Superman movie, if Lex was actually to go Apex Lex in the first film, I feel, and like, I don't know, maybe goes back into human form by the end. I suppose that could be a story. And, you know, I do want Lex in this film, but I don't know if I'd want him to kind of go about taking down Superman in terms of like roiding out into like apex Lex mode. Like, do you know what I mean? I feel like I want like a more powerful human version of Lex to be intimidating to Superman versus him kind of being jacked up with basically godlike powers that could take on Superman. And you know, when it ends there, like what we going to see with the future DCU Lex, you know, and obviously the Superman's going to be around for like 10 plus years. This is James Gunn's new DC universe, and Superman Legacy is the first proper project or movie that is kicking it off. So for Lex to kind of be, you know, going Sonic or like Dragon Ball Z mode in the first movie, I don't know about that, but let me know what you think. One more thing, Justin Kroll, who wrote the Deadline article, didn't mention this in the article, but he says, one thing not mentioned, while they've been taking submissions for the Lex Luthor role, sources tell me Gunn has been talking to one of his Guardians for the part. Sounds like it's probably not happening, but there certainly were discussions during Guardians of the Galaxy 3 press tour. Now, some insiders, I believe, quote tweeted this and said that it was Bradley Cooper, but it's no longer happening, as per what Justin Kroll is teasing here. I'm not sure why he wouldn't say Bradley Cooper, though. Maybe he just really wasn't sure. And that's the thing. We've been talking a bit about Bradley Cooper on the channel for a while now, in live streams especially, and I truly think like he's a tremendous actor. He's one of the best out there, and I'm not gonna lie, I know he's 48. He doesn't look 48 at all, though, but he could play, and I mean this, like Bruce Wayne to Batman if he wanted to. He could play Green Arrow if he wanted to. He could play freaking Green Lantern if he wanted to. And yes, he could play Lex Luthor. And some of you may fundamentally disagree with me there, but that's how much acting range I think Bradley Cooper has. So to hear, if this is true, take this with a huge grain of salt, even though it's being written by a major trade, that maybe Bradley Cooper was talking to Gunn about possibly being Lex in Superman Legacy. So that would have been quite an older Lex, because if Clark's around 27 to 32 and Lex would be like 48, Bradley Cooper, apparently that might not be happening anymore. I personally, even though I would love Bradley Cooper as Lex, I do kind of want Lex to be similar to Clark's age. So let's just say it's David Corenswet, who is around 27, I believe. I wouldn't mind if Lex, you know, was a few years older, so let's just say 32. I kind of want, not like a Smallville Pure kind of thing going on, but if Superman is Superman in this movie already, but hasn't been active for like forever, but he's been doing his business, saving the world every now and again, I do think Lex should be in a similar position. So what I meant by Smallville in a way is, you know, they're both still kind of newish to the world. They've been in their roles, in their respective roles for a while. So Clark being Superman for maybe a few years, Lex maybe having taken over LexCorp from his father maybe for the past 2 or 3 years as well. They're both kind of not year. It's like, again, excuse the Batman comparison here, but Matt Reeves didn't start Bruce off in Batman Year 1. He started him off into Batman Year 2, a Batman who's still becoming. This would be a Superman who's still becoming, which actually is the case, and I kind of want a Lex that is still becoming in his early to mid-30s as well. And Bradley Cooper would be like 48, so I wouldn't be against a much older Lex with a much younger Superman, but that's what I've got to say about that. And I still hope, though, that Bradley Cooper has a killer role in the DCU. I hope for him to be in it because he's that freaking awesome. And I'm not gonna lie, I'd be super happy with whoever he gets cast as. One thing though, I would want him to be a main role, not like a small one. Okay, so let's go round to the castings for what we have so far. We have David Corenswet, we have Nicholas Hoult, we have Jacob Elordi, apparently who didn't submit himself, but is still being referenced to as being in the short list or whatever. I'm not so sure about him in terms of if he's actually sending stuff in or not for this. Then you have Andrew Richardson. These are obviously all the Clark contenders. Then we have Emma Mackey. We have Rachel Brosnahan, Phoebe Dynevor, and Samara Weaving. So let's start with David Corenswet. I'm just going to say it. I think he is the best man for the job out of the list that we have. So the Hollywood Reporter for Nicholas Hoult is saying that he is in the lineup to be, or is tipped to play Lex Luthor. But then you have Deadline saying, no, it's Superman. So let's look at Nicholas Hoult in the Superman lens. I think Nicholas Hoult is great. The most recent thing I saw him in was The Menu on Netflix. But and I'm not saying he can't be Superman, because there are fan concepts already that kind of give you just, a bit of a better look. But again, you can't just do it off looks alone. If you sent a self-tape in, you want to see what their demeanor's like. What are they like when they read out a bit of material? So that's something to bear in mind as we discuss all of this and as you guys even leave your comments with your own takes. But with that being said, clearly David Corenswet, at least to me, over Nicholas Hoult, looks like he could easily be more of a Clark Kent look. And before anyone says, oh, he's a Henry Cavill lookalike, well, I agree with what other people are saying. Who does Henry Cavill look like? Superman. Who does David Corenswet look like? Superman. So, of course, Superman could look like a lookalike to another Superman actor. For crying out loud. But Nicholas Hoult, even though Deadline are correcting the Hollywood Reporter, saying, no, he's in the run for Superman. If the Hollywood Reporter is right, again, grain of salts on both sides here for Deadline and the Hollywood Reporter, my personal preference would be shave his hair off, make him Lex. Make him Lex. I think he would be a good Lex Luthor. He's 33, which is absolutely fine, as I've already been over. David Corenswet is, okay, he's not 27, he's 29. As we move on to Jacob Elordi, again, I would say he's one of the actors here who is more just on this list, and even as the Hollywood Reporter said, like, some sources are just saying this is like a chat room list. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe, and you can interpret that multiple ways, but it could just be gossipy, or it could just be a list that they were chatting about, but, like, again, they're no way near a decision. It doesn't even mean everyone on that chat room list is even being considered, and they're swapping like audition tapes, or they're coming in properly. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's so much looseness and ambiguity here that Jacob Elordi, from what I can tell, isn't as credible as the whole Nicholas Hoult talk, the whole David Corenswet discussion that's going on. But as for Jacob Elordi, don't get me wrong, he does have a Clark Kent Superman look, especially if you put him in the suit, you gave him the right kind of comb over, like hairstyle and makeup. I'm not saying that he couldn't do it, but whenever he's been fan cast, I've always been a bit like, I don't know. I do think he is a very talented actor, though. So that's why I don't want to just kind of stigmatize the Euphoria role that a lot of people have with his Nate portrayal. That's one thing I do want to say. So I do feel like a lot of people knee-jerk kind of respond being like, oh, him? As Clark Kent? Like, just because you've seen him in Euphoria as Nate doesn't mean that he couldn't play a very warm Superman. That's just something that I need to say. That's not me endorsing him madly. I would want to be convinced a bit more. He's 25, so he would be on the absolute, youngest end of the spectrum here, because I really don't think they would go below 25. But I would love to know what you guys think of Jacob Elordi here. Then we have Andrew Richardson, who also, I would say, looks a bit more Superman than some of the other ones we've spoken about. But I would still say, for me, over Andrew Richardson, David Corenswet takes the cake. Now, Emma Mackey, let's talk about Lois for a second. I would say, like, this one's tough for me, because I think for me, it's between her and Rachel Brosnahan. So Emma Mackey, I don't like it when people just say, oh, she's a Margot Robbie knockoff. It's like, so she looks like Margot Robbie a bit. So does that mean David Corenswet is a Henry Cavill knockoff? I feel like she's more than earned her stripes here. Like, she's a credible actress. She's blown up since Sex Education. In terms of, she's actually, I think, not really in the next season as much because of how well her career has been doing. Now, do I see her as Lois? This is the thing. She's 27, not too far behind David Corenswet there. And I will keep referring to him because I think he's my front runner. If I was a casting director for this, out of the list of names I've got so far, David Corenswet would be my choice right now. Emma Mackey, Now, the next one, as I said, of whom it was between, is Rachel Brosnahan here. She's 32, and again, the Hollywood Reporter said that might be a bit too high up in the scale for, like, maybe what James Gunn is looking for. I don't necessarily think so, but the thing is, for example, I do think if you put Rachel Brosnahan standing side by side with someone like Jacob Elordi, who's 25, I do think that maybe, Jacob would look a bit too young there. I'm not sure. Like, Rachel doesn't look remotely old to me. I'm just saying she's 32, he's 25. Whereas I feel like, again, I do think Rachel standing side by side with David Corenswet here, who is 29. So, he's not like 32, but they look like a bit similar. Like, I can imagine her being Lois, him being Clark / Superman and having a scene together. Now, apparently, behind the scenes, she's given like an incredible performance in whatever she sent in. I don't really know too much about Phoebe Denver here. I don't watch Bridgerton. Bottom line, you know, as I go through the list, Samara Weaving here, like, it is kind of true. Like, these actors have been in movies, like even Scream 6 and some other projects, but they're not like, you know, top, like mad Hollywood level people. They've got some credits to their name, but it does seem true that James Gunn, it's not exactly unknowns, for example, like Daisy Ridley for The Force Awakens, but it's good to see that some of these actors, or at least most of them, outside of, I would say, Nicholas Hoult, haven't been in like crazy level popular things. But maybe you'll disagree with me and be like, Boba, but have you seen this person in this? You wouldn't know, would you? Because you haven't seen it. And I'll take that because I'm not so familiar with everyone's work here. What I did before this video is I've looked each one up. I've watched a few scenes with them. But without rambling for too much longer, guys, I would say my top pick for Clark Kent, at least out of the list right now, and this isn't to say that if somebody else got announced out of this list for the role of Clark Kent, that'd be mad. No, not at all. But I would say it's David Corenswet. And Nicholas Hoult, not Superman for me, to be honest. Not saying that he couldn't be, but I don't see it. I think shave his hair off, make him Lex Luthor. Now, as for Lois Lane, for me, it is between Emma Mackey and Rachel Brosnahan. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you think out of all of these names would be a good fit? I do apologize if I didn't give too many opinions on some of the other actors because I'm just not so familiar with their work. But obviously, that doesn't completely close the door for me in terms of if one of them got cast out of maybe who I was vibing to be in the role. Maybe you could be like, Boba, check out this. I actually think that this person would be really good. You didn't talk about them so much, but even better than David Corenswet or even Emma Mackey or Rachel Brosnahan. Just let me know. I read every single comment, so I can't wait to see what you have to say about this. Let me know about the Flash clips as well. What do you think's going on there? What do you think about some of the CGI? What do you think about the lightning color? All of that good stuff. Leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it. I'd really appreciate you if you did that and just helped out the channel. Maybe consider subscribing if you're brand new for more news just like this, breakdowns and reviews. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. And I'll see you, DC family, in the next video. Goodbye.